Reframing Mindset podcast, where I clear my head of the thoughts that are preventing clarity, practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, welcome back to Reframe Mindset podcast. My name is Connor Books, and this episode I talk about. This episode I talk about people is are living a life that they can't even fathom, and this kind of relates to those stuff in these years. For every person that knows is living a morning life, as in we're given the same opportunities, just that throughout this are living a different life because of natural habits of not wanting. Getting rich and everything is a risk. It's a risk. And it's like it takes you from not doing what you were naturally do to actually doing something different. Like you're to get richer than you were before. You're out there throwing away lessons, and that's why I say in this when I talk about spring cleaning and stuff like that, it gets way more each year. Where we're like, okay, you're throwing away certain stuff, throwing away certain habits and all these stuff that you had in a different last year, and it gets bigger, and it gets bigger this year and stuff like that. So, like for example, boom, plastics. If you're out there, so one of the things there's a boom, plastics, using plastic, growing up, I have plastic bags and all these stuff, and all these stuff, single use plastic and stuff like that. You know, what you may realize is that you cannot. There's there's a life that you can't even follow. So if you actually go around doing your driving lesson and stuff like that, I just going around driving, you will see a neighborhood different than yours, way better than yours or way worse. It that I want this to see a neighborhood that was way better and stuff like that. I not way better. It's just that they did stuff back in the days that I'm always um are doing that I basically should be doing now, and what happens that I'm just basically yeah, you're stuck in a certain mindset. That's what I guess what it's still called a reframe mindset podcast. I'm still working a certain living a certain mindset that basically prevents me from actually doing this stuff to reaching that level again. So that's basically what this episode now about is using plastics. Maybe like, okay, yo, we're coming from a time of shortage where things like, for example, certain buying certain stuff. And that's thing now. This I'm listening to this episode in 2025 now. They'll be like, oh, there's I'm out there, so we'll be like, oh, there is a in 2025 now, me, I'm out there so living a somewhat a spoiled part of my life. Again, where I actually realized that I was out there so making some purchases that was at the time they were big purchases now. They were big purchases now. And it took a lot out of me to actually get those purchases done. Because what happens that those were dreams that became a reality. That's the reason for the podcast. Man. These were stuff that we actually at one point couldn't even. We were out there so dreaming of getting. We were out there so dreaming of getting, and then all of a sudden we get it, we get it, but we forgot. What happens is that because of compound interest and all these stuff, we um it's not the fact that we forgot how hard it was. It's just that we always are putting in the work. We always are putting in the work. So what happens is that those what would be those impossible purchases become way more possible. Naturally, our mind just tending our mind is just naturally wired to say, okay, we're gonna put in the work to get X amount of dollars or stuff like that to buy this and all those stuff. We rewire so all this stuff that I'm saying in the podcast, I naturally rewire it in my brain to say, oh, I'm doing it naturally now. So I naturally say, yeah, I'm gonna take my time to this to do this now and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, but so what? But it, what happens that I what happens that I forgot is that these stuff, these purchases and all these stuff took a lot out of me. Those weren't purchases that happened overnight. But what happens is that over time I use the stuff better, I use the money wisely, I use the skills that I have wisely, and then now I'm at a certain place where these purchases. What happens is that I see these purchases now, and they are quality purchases in my home now. But because I was not at home now, I forgot how quality the purchase is was. So it took me time like clean up the house and all these stuff. You remember that, okay, yeah, these stuff were quality purchases. So sometimes be like, oh, they I'm gonna throw away this, like, because I have the degree from Wade back in 2018 and all those. I forgot how hard it was to actually get this stuff and getting a frame and all this. Be like, oh my god, I'm gonna throw it away and all this stuff. No, what happens is that the reason why you have something like certain cleaning and stuff like that is to remind you of how it's like a way to get your catch you back to say, yeah, some of these purchases took a lot out of you, and it's like you forgot what it took to get it, but it takes things like cleaning up. Certain things are in place to remind you that these are the reasons why you actually was all this making these purchases. Why those purchases were the working years take forever for you to actually do it. So what means that no separating. So what means that you actually go to university days or you go to any well-established institution and you out there so throwing away garbage. If you're coming from a poor family or stuff like that, or anything, you go to a very fancy place. What you actually realize is that in throwing away garbage, you see some variation of recycling plastic and throwing away litter. So throwing away litter and going away plastic. So what you can do now in your fourth year home ownership or stuff like that are going forward is getting the habit now of separating plastic from litter. Just get in the habit of basically do that now. So if you're coming from someone, a family like me, you'll be like, oh my god. You'll say coming from a time of a shortage, coming from a mindset of shortage, I'll be like, oh my god. We don't want out there so throwing away plastic fork and stuff like that because we come with a natural thing, so we like thunder and using plastic and all these stuff. Plastic and all these stuff. What you can do is basically separate plastics and litter. Plastics versus litter, plastic versus paper and all these stuff. So what happens is that you efficiently manage your ability to make purchases of plastics into the home. So like for example, you're out there so saying, okay, I'm gonna purchase a whole plate of plastic fork or stuff like that because I'm out there so saying that okay, when the rain season come and thunder comes and stuff like that, using a silver fork is actually bad and all these stuff. Using something in silver is actually bad. So I'm gonna purchase like a whole case of fork for this rain season and all these stuff and making those purchases. But at the same time, having the natural tendencies to say, yo, I'm going to separate plastic and litter and litter. You're out there, so when you actually throw away the garbage now, the plastic is separated and the litter is separated, and the garbage is disposed of efficiently. It's separated efficiently in the home and basically if it done efficiently in the we call it throw it efficiently in the garbage and all those stuff. But at the same time, you're not the garbage person and stuff like that. But at the same time, you're out there so throwing away. You're out there so recycling. You don't have the ability to go out and buy a purchase. For example, a whole garbage pan related to plastics. You can actually work your way up there. You can actually work your way up there. You can actually work your way up. But you eventually going to work your way up there in the home. That's the thing, with everything, even the working world and stuff like that. You're seeing the future. You're out there so working for many reasons. You're out there so seeing the future, even the working world in the university world and stuff like that. You're seeing the future. And what means that you're there. So, like you go out and be like, oh my God, you're coming from a home that you never see TV and go to you go to a business and you see TV there. Then that those are stuff, like you're growing up when I was growing up, we didn't have game. And when I was coming up, there was a point in time I had games. I had games where I had for play games and stuff like that. Then home for there was a point in time when the family had no games at all. So you'll see me I had to leave the home, go out and purchase games. I would actually have to go out and purchase games. I did have cable. I did have cable and all these stuff. I did have cable and all these. I had to go watch, wait on Sunday stuff, wait on things, Sunday watch stuff like that. After out there, so wait for my plan for my luxury and all this stuff. I didn't have it freely like that. I didn't have it freely like that. So what will happen is that sometimes you're out there, so you see the future, but you're not able to actually go out and do the future in your home. But you can actually apply it in certain ways. Like for example, out there they have some plastic bag now, and I said, these are ideas now. Where say, like you have to actually get the family. You have to actually get the family out there, so you're into it before you're out there, so that go out and be like, okay, I'm going to do this stuff. That's the thing, where you be like, okay, when they actually come in getting richer and all this stuff. It feels weird because we've never been this before. The family has never been this before. So we're like, the family is out there so coordinating and all these stuff. We've never been this before. So each of the ideas are very revolutionary because what happens, so what we have is that what seems so simple is revolutionary from a family because it's what happens that it's anti what our whole generation is used to. It's like throwing away plastics and stuff like that. These stuff are next thing you hear me say, okay, throwing away silver and all these stuff. But what happens is that for each level of richness that we reach, when I go somewhere, you see a person living a life that you can't even fathom. You can't even fathom it. For each level you break, you see someone out there still living a life that they can't even fathom the fact that they. So that's the thing with the plastic. So what happened is that no, with a conversation with my mother, what I realized was that the tendency to say, okay, yo, boom, we use a plastic or stuff like that. I'm not say rich enough to go out and say, oh, and that's the thing where I be like, okay, some of the ideas now, it's hard to tell, but it's like that's the thing where I be like, first. So, but basically, what the episode is saying that okay, I'm going to separate plastic and litter. So the future goal is to actually go out and buy. I get a different pan. Alright, I'm not throwing out that much garbage now, but eventually, you say, if I'm throwing out a lot of garbage, I always have and these are stuff that I see in the universities that I would actually apply in my home. They'll be like, okay, I have the plastic and litter ga- garbage bag or garbage pan. And I don't just label those stuff and be like, okay, garbage, plastic, recycle, and all these stuff. And just out there so doing it. And then naturally out there so do it for a while. Then it becomes second nature. It becomes second nature for people out there so throwing out plastic and all these stuff. And then what happens is that single-use plastic becomes single-use plastic and naturally. Then what happens is that because you're always using the single-use plastic for single-use plastic, you go out and actually be able to buy the stuff that you were actually using it that you were out there so using it for. So I talk about useless things becoming useful and stuff like that. Say you were out there so because you were somewhat poor, coming from a poor mindset, just say, okay, I'm gonna use the plastic ponds or stuff like that to store water and all these stuff. You go out and be like, okay, I'm going to go out and take my time to work and actually learn about how to actually go buy a water storage and all these stuff and all these stuff. You can actually go out and buy different better ways of storing stuff. Then when you buy better ways of storing stuff now, you use it for a while, see, and then boom, you find a better way of storing the stuff. Nothing is changing or nothing is changing. You're still applying this stuff. You're like, okay, when I'm throwing away the garbage, you just like you're throwing away bigger plastics now. Oh, this throwing away bigger plastics now. And I'll be like, okay. We are still applying the same concept of saying separating plastic and litter and litter. We'll be like, okay, I'm throwing away plastic and then litter. And then boom, you're there to do that over and over. And then eventually you can afford to buy a litter and you can buy a recycled pan in your home, and then you can buy a litter pan in your home, and then each room have a litter pan and a recycle pan, and then all of a sudden you walk into the home. Every time I see recycle, I'll be like, oh my god, bro, oh the hell are you so fancy? How the hell are you so fancy to have a litter and and the garbage stuff like that? And be like, it's not we out there, so it's just the fact that we actually go out and we were applying all these stuff way before we actually had the ability to buy the litter, but we actually have it now, and now we look fancy. Now we look fancy saying, okay, we're applying litter and garbage and stuff like that. But what happens is that we apply these stuff in the in the period in the low period, and then what it becomes natural. So you will naturally out there, so because you're out there, and that thing will be like some of the ideas when we talk about the bottom, we'll be like, okay, you leave the bottom, and sometimes it makes sense to not go back to the bottom. We'll be like, okay, yeah, I'm out there so applying these stuff, applying these knowledge. I went out there so and applied the knowledge, apply the knowledge. So you see me the struggle that I get for you getting a credit card or getting a this or that, all these stuff, all those struggles and all these stuff. A person just walk in and see the results and be like, could get it instantaneously, And then you hear some, and but the podcast is there now. Yeah? I out there to hear the struggles of months of me out there so struggling to get these stuff now. And all you have to do is just basically listen to the end of year episodes, and the end of year episode tell her that basically boom, just do X, Y, and Z, and you get this and that, and be like. But what happens is that I actually had to go out there, struggle, you hear me using perspective of time, all these stuff and that. Yeah, those episodes now. Yeah, those episodes now. But all you have to do is just, just go in and just do the work efficiently, and just do the work, and you get it really quick. And you just see those stuff. But you don't see the years of sacrifice. But this episode is relevant. We'll be like, okay, the natural habit now is actually just go out and do things like sep what I say, you a rich neighborhood or a poor neighborhood and stuff like that, or a different neighborhood. Nothing is different about it. It's just that we are the same things, but different mindset. We have the same things, but a different mindset. Same thing. So recycling plastic or stuff like that. The tendency to actually go out and do recycle the plastic and all these stuff. Just applying it in the real into your home the best way you can. So you go out and be like, okay, I can go out there and spend money and go out and buy all these stuff. And then sometimes you just go out and take your time after just do it with the bag, separate the plastic and litter. Then you just do it, and then naturally you get into the habit of naturally out there. So just naturally out there, so throwing away the garbage in plastic and litter. You're naturally doing that. Then you just actually be like, okay, I go to the store and I see this thing that says a garbage litter and all these stuff, and be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna actually just go out and just buy it real quick. But what happens is that you're actually applying the lessons. It's just that no, you have a better way of actually doing it now. So that's basically this for this the thing for this episode. Will be like, okay, yo, some they recycle plastics, using plastic and stuff like that. One of I guess in this reality now where plastic is a weird thing now, but recycling plastic and all these stuff, like getting into the habit of doing it. You need one of the things is that you're actually coming from a time. You're coming from a time where most of these stuff seems futuristic or are not futuristic. It's out of your way out of your budget. Like, oh my god, a big proclamation of saying, okay, a whole ban of plastic now. Oh, plastic ban and all these stuff. Oh, plastic ban. And be like, yo. That is so drastic and all these stuff. And all those stuff. What happens is that now, you just build the habit of separating plastic from from separating plastic from litter. And then those stuff by doing those stuff in the home, you can naturally out there start applying it in real life. You naturally go out there and you naturally apply it in real life. You naturally just go out and separate the plastic and stuff. But no, no. The better way to do this episode is that you go out there. So the better way to actually do this episode, to actually reframe this episode, is to say that you go out in the and you see the people that's living the fancy life and all these stuff, and you try to emulate it back then. Just trying to be like, okay, yeah, try to emulate the fancy life and all those stuff. You may not be able to afford to do it at home, but you can apply certain concept of it in small ways. So I can't go out and be like, okay, I'm gonna afford to go out, spend money to go out and go buy a whole because I'm fancy. I'm gonna go out and say, yo, I'm gonna go out and buy a whole pan to go for recycling. Then boom, I go through the whole house and no plastic. I'm not using no plastic. So I actually buy the pan for it. It's like stuff like that. But what happens is that I'm throwing out garbage. I'm throwing out garbage. Let me just get into the habit now of saying, okay, I'm gonna separate plastic from litter, and then over time it's gonna become a natural habit of saying, okay, I'm gonna separate plastic from litter. And then all of a sudden, boom, boom, you're gonna realize how little plastic you use, or you're gonna say, okay, I use plenty plastic in this home, bro. So I'm going to go out and be like, I'm going to invest and buy a plastic, a recycling pan then, because I use like 10 million plastic in the home and stuff like that. But getting into the habit of actually saying, of all this is separating plastic from litter, that will actually compound you in making money in the sense that from you actually can quantify how much plastic and all this stuff. You're gonna realize something. You'll be like, okay, plastic was very useful. Plastic was very useful. That's all the bad ideas now that all this stuff bashing in 2025 or stuff like that. It was revolution. Just like out there, so boom, you out there, so see they move to electric. Oil is getting bashed upon since birth. Oil was revolutionary at one point. So what happens is that don't forget the fact that these stuff are revolutionary. Plastic and all these stuff are revolutionary. But at the same time, there's a better way. There's a better way. So we have to actually come in there's a better way, but we can't afford to do it the better way. In the way that we want to. But we actually just take our time to apply it in a certain way. Like take our time to apply it in a certain way. Certain things compound. So certain things compound. You come out and be like, okay, now I'm out there so see me just up throwing away plastics. You see me throwing a whole bag of plastic now. Even things that are not garbage now, bro. When they say plastic, I'm out there so throwing away and stuff like that. Then eventually I get so I'm out there going get into that with of throwing away plastic versus litter. But litter and all these stuff. Then I start to quantify into the home and say, okay, each month I'm out there so using stuff, X amount of plastics and all these things. X amount of plastics are those stuff. A home say X amount of plastic. Are not one that I can actually quantify to say is plastic actually going out and doing a better is plastic making a better use of my home where if I actually spend more money and buy bigger plastics, single use plastic instead of the small plastic, would that actually be better now these stuff? Given because sometimes out there's a boom. I live a far place. So buying some a big plastic, like for example, a plastic water, big plastic water, it doesn't it's hard to actually do that. But if I'm somebody that say if I can quantify to say okay, each summer I'm out there so gonna use I'm going to be very hot. So now I'm going to pre-plan to say okay I'm going to spend a day to actually go out and buy a big plastic or a whole big plastic of water now and all these stuff. Buy a big plastic of water now. I'm planning. I'm like, okay, buy a big plastic of water. I'm like, yo, we're gonna do that. We actually can just go buy the big plastic, um, plan buy the big plastic of water. Know that okay, this is gonna last me for the summer because the time going to be hot and all those stuff. Then when that time done now and pass, we can just get rid of the plastic, put it back to where it was and recycle it. And then what happens now? Naturally, a whole home is coming out of poverty. A whole home is trying out is doing something like separating plastic and litter that a whole home that never done that before. So that's the thing where be like, yo, a whole home coming out of poverty, it's actually something. And it's like you don't realize how different that is. A whole home saying, okay, we're gonna stop doing a life of crime and just becoming legit. Everything is just so legit now. Everything is just so legit. And I'd be like, wow, that is actually revolutionary. I'd be like, yo, a whole home just becomes on the map. And it's like the whole home is a whole home is just anti the country, anti everything you hear, everything negative you hear about the country. They come to this home, and it's like yo, everything is anti that. Every single thing is anti the negative stuff that you hear about the country. Every single thing. So what happens that so that's even the plastic and stuff like that. The out there are doing that, and people out there will actually just simply doing those stuff. People out there are coming out and seeing the results, and be like, yo, he's out there some doing something to making some progress in the world. In the world, let me actually apply. That's a read for the podcast. You're out there so seeing me living the results. You see how this living the results. And you say, how the hell that person is living the results without a life of crime, bro? Are not doing stuff like that. So the podcast is there to show you, right? It's like, okay, what happened is that you actually try it out. When you actually try it out, then all of a sudden you become on the grid and you're doing it right. You're doing it right. And be like, yo, all of a sudden you see two homes now out there so recycling paper versus litter and all these stuff. Now we don't have to do it perfectly, but what this are doing it perfect. Paper versus plastic and all these stuff. And buying stuff efficiently, buying water efficiently and all these stuff, buying groceries efficiently and everything and stuff like that. All of a sudden, what happens is that a whole community now, a whole community is just out there so moving efficient. Then we can actually start moving to the new level where it be like, yo, and all those. But it takes time. It takes and what happens is that we can not only we always efficiently getting rid of plastic and all those stuff efficiently. We out there so we are moving out of a cycle quicker. So you always talk about the industrial. You talk about my grandmother talking about the farming days and stuff like that. When I leave the university now, I come back and experience the farming day, but I leave it quicker. I leave it. I move from the farming days to the industrial farming days quicker and all those stuff. So what means that I get the lessons in, bro. So that's the important thing. You're out there so getting the lessons. But what happens that you're out there so leaving the industry. So what happens that nowadays of me coming now and tell about my science days and stuff like that. And I out there so hear me doing the science thing. You know, it's applying it way better than me and be like, I see him out there so grumpy. Grumpy and be like, oh my god, bro. You guys have it so easy there. Back in the days, bro. Back in the days I was called a nerd, bro. I couldn't get anything, bro. I didn't even have internet, bro. I had to go. I didn't even have the internet, bro. I didn't even. I was called a nerd, bro. You out there so walking around with this and that, bro. I was called a nerd, bro. So what means that you hear me struggling, bro. You hear the struggles of me back in the days. But what means that you acknowledge those days and you move past my days quicker, bro. You move past my days quicker, bro. And then it's like, yeah, yeah. Yo, I'm out there envying you, bro. Envying you out there to living the nice days and be like, yeah, bro. But we actually had to do that because we actually tried to go forward. So that's the thing with the plastic where be like, you're gonna see me out there so separating the plastic and litter and stuff like that. Revolutionary and be like, how the hell this person out there so separating plastic and all of a sudden he driving in a car, bro. How the hell this person out there driving a car, bro? You hear me talking about separating plastic and litter and be like, what? What? This person was out there so half a sudden you see me out there so drinking one bottle of water. You see, then half a sudden you see me buy a big bottle of water. And be like, why in the world did he bought a whole big bottle of water and all these stuff? Why you see me out there so you see me doing stuff like eating parboiled rice? Yeah, back in the days you only hear me talking about rice. You hear me say, sell me parboiled rice. What happened is that when I actually went to university and stuff like that, people were living a life that we couldn't even fathom. We couldn't even fathom those lives. But what happens is that when you actually what happens is that when you go to the university, you see people out there so living that life, and you can't tell why the hell that life is better. Because so what happens is that now that you're out there so in the real world and you're out there so making some money, you can actually go and actually test to see why the hell that life is better and all those. So that's the reason why coming out of poverty is so painful, bro. It's so sad and painful, bro. Because you're out there so seeing the people out there so living the life, bro. You're out there so seeing the people out there so living the life, bro. And can't. It's like, bro. It's so sad. It's so sad, bro. Coming out of poverty is so sad, bro. It's a sad experience, bro. It's like it's eye dropping every day, bro. Eye dropping. Like, some days I wake up and be like, bro, I can't believe this. We couldn't believe this. We couldn't believe that people are living this life, bro. But they're gonna see me what someday, bro. Buying parboiled rice, bro. Parboiled rice. And it's like, what what in the what in the world is parboiled rice? They're gonna be like partially boiled rice. And it's like, oh my god, that's what they call it, parboiled rice? Oh, it's partially boiled. I'm like, what? Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing where I be like, yo, you're gonna see me. So that's what you actually do stuff to actually get get it? Where be like, oh, you start bringing those fancy stuff into a to a era that is coming out and be like, yo, oh, you're gonna be like, and you see me up there so upgrading and wondering how in the world that we all this upgrading, bro. Because what happens that we the simple fundamentals that we saw in those university days and stuff like that, we start applying them the best way we could in the adult life until until you're actually able to buy the real thing. And so what happens that a poor ball rice or something like that, or same thing you're gonna listen to episode about the safety match and stuff like that. A poor ball rice or something like that, is no different than it could be no different than the other rice. Man. It's just that they actually go through the process to say they actually partially boil it first. So so that we actually save time to cook it and all those stuff. And be like, okay, next thing you know, there's stuff like that. So it's like those are stuff where be like, these when I actually reach this far, you're gonna be like, you're gonna out there so be naturally having ideas. It, it, um, so that's the thing about reaching this far from your university days, where be like you see the future. Now. That's the thing, now, bro. That's the funny thing about actually. Say for example, I became a lecturer and all those stuff. And you see me out there, so in 20 something, there's a lecturing some future student or stuff like that. And what happens that the future student wouldn't know about this podcast. What when they would actually know about this podcast is like 20 years or so, like 20 years or how many years after our like 5 years or so or something like that. After they leave university and appreciate the knowledge that this are teaching them. They're gonna actually listen to the podcast and learn about those days. And they're gonna learn about the days that I wasn't a lecturer. They're gonna learn about the days the podcast is gonna tell them what they did when I was a university graduate. Oh, this didn't make it, bro. That I wasn't a lecturer, bro. I wasn't an MSc and all those. We're gonna hear about those. We're gonna hear about those days. And what's going to be like what happens that what made me became the lecturer if I do it all those stuff it's not the fact that I was out there so go out there and be the lecturer. It's just that I actually was simply it reached a point where I actually realized I was out there so trying to apply this stuff in real life. In real life. But the obstacle was to actually rationalize why I to make my points valid in the real world. That's the thing. So boom, you see me now 2040 or stuff like that. A future baby out there to come out and see me out there so lecturing you, bro. I now realize from 96 then I want to fighting to actually say these stuff that I'm saying to say these stuff. So it's these humble beginnings. Bro. They see me the humble beginnings. They see me out there lecturing and all this stuff. And be like for years I'm out there so honing the skills and all this stuff. Honing the skills and out there so bringing relevance to what I'm saying. Then you see me in university I say come in and say something simple. And it's like, okay, I say something simple like, okay, when it's 10 of you, it's gonna be like, oh, this and that and that and that. And be like, yo. And that stuff. And what happens that though that saying is going to be that- for someone like me, that saying is something I could laugh about because for someone like me, I was doing the straight subject. I wasn't planning to go if, to medicine or stuff like that. But for someone like who was going to straight medicine, who wanted to say, okay, I'm gonna out there, so use this to actually go to the straight medicine. That knowledge out there, so it's actually a reality shock to them to say, yo, you 400 of you out there, so it's gonna be coming out here to go to med, bro. Only 10 of you is gonna go to do this, bro. It's like it's good to have that reality. that person out there that's trying to say I'm gonna use it to go there. To him, that was that message out here saying, it's heartening, that thing that hold him to the heart, bro. It's like, yo, the first day is like, yo, like give him a reality check like that. So what happens is that boom, you see me. What happens is that I like you don't our teacher stuff like you don't know what the teacher out there so is impacting on you. For example, a lecturer don't become a lecturer. You know, they're doing this stuff. You're doing the university stuff, making their way. Then they reach a point. They reach a point and they reach a point of relevance. And it just compounds over time. It just compounds over time. I'm like, okay. So they start reaching a point of relevance. And you you're holding there's a reaching a point of relevance. And it's like, yo, after you after you reach the point of relevance, um, what happens that the person you impacted don't don't realize the struggle to actually get that impact until like how many years later and how many years later they actually come in and they go and find the podcast and stuff like that. Um, it, it was it this bad to stop. Just so what happens that you see me now. You see me now. Say I became first, became a lecturer. So I'm like, I be like, yo, was it this bad to reach here? It was it this bad to reach this? Was it this hard to actually reach this level? And all these stuff, and all these stuff. So that's the thing about the career as a luxury. I be like, the higher level you reach, like the more you reach, the more you do something like humanize a person like Einstein that we actually out this a praise and out this a humanize a person and be like, okay, yeah. make his stuff real and all these stuff. And be like, okay, yeah. But don't know that yo, it is struggle to actually make his stuff relevant into the real world back in his time was a struggle. Was a struggle. And no what happens that it wasn't a struggle it wasn't a struggle because we out there so saying it was hard or so. It's because just like yo, I say with every day. Those days were there for a reason. Those days were there for a reason. So it's like you know how to come out and tell them, show them a way why your those days were there for a reason. It's up to you now to show them why your days isn't why your days is uh why your days is what should I say? I should say why your days is uh, um you must show them why your days is so I think that the podcast is showing why your days was so relevant. You know, why your days what so you're gonna no, so what you're gonna see the glory. So these podcast episodes, you're gonna see the glory and be like, oh my god, these yo, they see me living the balling life and all those stuff. I see me doing this simple stuff, but don't know that um our career as a luxury, becoming a lecturer, those stuff, making those when you like for example I become a lecturer these stuff just to be out there doing that and be like yo what happen? You see a small percent of people coming to me in about I'm just giving them AR0 and all these and be like ARX to pass our field and you be like yeah um you pass our field and it's like yeah you you actually wouldn't um you don't realize how impactful those that thing are reaching new level. You don't realize how impactful are the struggle I would have to face to reach those levels of saying being luxurious to say, okay, yeah, do some. So you no, so you come in and hear me. So what will happen is that you hear me this episode about plastic and stuff like that. Then you come out and you come into my home. You see me like this is 2025. Then by 2026, you come and you see my home. You walk into my home, you see plastic, you see a recycling pan and a and a litter pan and a litter pan. I heard this mistake, just like English. It's similar there with a, a litter pan. And it's like, what happened? What happened? You what when you actually listen to the episode, you're gonna listen to the days that I didn't even consider. I always there's a consider that's the thing about this phase of the life where it be like, yo, sometimes sometimes you audience have the money you've been putting the work for so long that you have wealth in different ways. You have wealth in so many different ways, but it's hard to quantify because you were so stuck in. It's hard to actually pinpoint where your wealth is. You have to simply because you were out there so putting in the work and it's so compound. So what happens that now you're out there so doing some simple stuff now, and those simple stuff carry weight. Sim- those simple stuff carry weight now. So me is telling you something like, okay, just going out, just label one of your garbage pan. If you can't have a garbage pan, just have two plastic bag in your home. Label one plastic, label one litter, and get into the habit of all this separating plastic and litter. And then just doing that in the home, then you naturally do that outside of the home and all those. So basically now you're out there so naturally reaching the next level of richness, of cleanliness and all those. You're naturally out there so doing what you would do outside of the home, inside of the home. And what will happen is that that will make maintaining the home that much easier. That will make maintain the home that much easier because you're out there so doing the right thing from the start. You're out there so doing the right thing from the start, and you're out there so not doing the wrong. Or so doing the right thing from the start and not the wrong. So that's basically the thing with this. Where be like sometimes you're out there so hear a revolutionary idea. And this is the thing with this episode. Will be like sometimes you hear a revolutionary idea and it's not revolut is not that is maybe you can't apply it in the revolutionary way that you actually hear it, but you can find this is a simpler I guess this is a simple way for the podcast. So it'd be like, okay, when you see me, for example, you see me on the big stage and all these stuff, saying, oh, you see the glory and see me on the big stage, praise, be like, oh my God. But these are the fundamental days that you see and be like, oh yeah, I was out here separating garbage, labeling garbage. Maybe I didn't do it the way I said it, but I was out there supplying and separating garbage and litter. Then I actually separated the garbage and litter. Or maybe the family heard me say that I want to separate the garbage and litter. They could actually go out and buy the garbage pan and litter. And now they see me out there so actually separating garbage and litter. Then the whole family now out there so turning people that saying separating garbage and litter. Those are the stuff that happens in the world. We'll be like, okay, you out there so somebody heard something revolutionary and they're gonna do it in a simple way. Then all of a sudden, somebody come out and buy it the real way. the real result. So that's the thing about the podcast. That's what I would probably be like, yo. You hear me listening, you hear me, sometimes you hear me talking, and you hear me hear the phone ringing and stuff like that. What happens that you're out there, so he hear me want to implement the stuff the way that I said it now, bro. But what happens that they hear it and then do it already. And now I have to just basically just do it, bro. And then what happens that my revolutionary idea isn't revolutionary anymore, bro. It's just that, we just have to do it. But even if it's not revolutionary, we still appreciate it because what happens is that trickle up economics, bro. Because they do it I would just cry for that second, bro, and be like, I wish I was the one do it. But because they actually do it before, I actually have more money to do stuff elsewhere. So that's the thing about trickle up economics, bro. So, but the reason why I actually have to regurgitate the idea, bro, because while my family out there so going hear the idea and are doing, I call it revolutionary and stuff like that. There's the other side that is actually out there, so maybe not reach that level yet and all this stuff. But this podcast episode is here to tell you that yeah, this is the way that I was gonna approach it, and this is the end result. If you have the money, you can just do it either way or all this stuff. But these are the way we can actually approach it. But that's the thing about this episode. This thing. Using plastics now, bro. This is the episode now we talk about using separate throwing away garbage. So this is the episode of throwing away garbage on the fourth year now. Separating plastic versus litter. Those stuff now can actually just doing that simple habit into the it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to actually do these stuff, but it's going to be very different for you. I'm out this as a person that naturally keep plastic and stuff like that. I coming from a family that basically keep plastic. Then you out there so throwing out the plastic and stuff like that. Throwing out the plastic is one thing, bro. Is one thing to actually throw out the plastic. Next thing to actually separate plastic from litter. That is the next thing. Actually coming from where I'm coming from. Throwing away plastic is one thing, but throwing away plastic, separating plastic and litter is a next thing to do. But if you can actually do those stuff now, what will happen is that you actually applying the recycling method effectively. And then what happens is that because you're just applying the recycling method, then we can actually see a better way to use the plastic. Where it'll be like, okay, maybe instead of buying or instead of spending so much money buying 10 million plastic fork or 10 million stuff like 10 million small bottle of water and all these stuff. We buy a big bottle of water and stuff like that. Then we go theory or there's invest into making not really even buy water again. We go and invest in making purifying the water that we get from the tap and all these stuff. Then there's a do with that and all these stuff. Eventually, boom, a whole generation don't even remember the days that we out there so usually use plastic. Fuck it in water, bro. Our generation don't didn't even know that plastic exists, bro. It's like, yo, that's actually wild. That's actually wild. So these stuff are revolutionary ideas, bro. These stuff are revolutionary ideas, but it's just that it takes time to you start small. You start small. And that's the thing, bro. You buy everything small. All right, what happens that the thing about these revolutionary ideas, what going to make it so revolutionary? I tell you about the idea now, and then it's gonna be so easy. People gonna implement it so quick that by the time you implement it, bro, you're gonna seem so primitive. They call you the caveman, bro. They call you the caveman, bro. But I was out there so about to implement the stuff. But it's important for you, it's important for me to actually regurgitate this level, to understand why we out there, to know about this level, to know that when we actually leave this level, you know why. You know why. So it doesn't make sense you out there so farming like you out there so farming, making bank and all those stuff. And then for 50 years, you out there so farming, bro. Farming, digging up and all these stuff. Then you always I hear about another country out there so doing industrial farming and all these stuff. I hear about all that countries out there so bad because they also doing industrial farming. No, what will happen is that you're out there so if you actually learn the lessons from our time now to know what made our time of digging the dirt good to say, yeah, we're gonna keep that quality of digging the dirt good before we out there. So when we actually learn why. Then we actually take our time to actually go on. We ain't upgrading anything like that before until we out there to learn why digging the dirt that way was the best way. When we actually go out and learn now, then we can go out and be like, yeah, now that we actually dig out the dirt that way now, we're gonna apply the fertilizer the right way. We actually apply a little fertilizer this way and all those. But what happens is that you know the steps now. You know why when I actually go out and you know the reason why I'm out there to going out and buy a fertilizer. That's the first thing. I would actually know why they're I'm going in the streets to actually go out and buy the fertilizer. Then when actually know why I'm going out and buy the fertilizer now, now you know that okay. Yes, I know I'm not gonna buy the fertilizer. Then you're gonna hear me saying, okay, yeah, I'm gonna buy a certain brand of fertilizer now. You're gonna hear me say, yo, I'm gonna buy a certain brand of fertilizer now. And it's like, yeah, so that what happens is that you come in and see the results. You come in and see the results and all these stuff. But I need to know the fun and what happens that the fundamental these is what caused those results to happen and all these stuff. Those fundamental these cause the results to happen. Maybe like okay, all of a sudden now I'm out there so you're seeing the result. You see me out there so clocking in industrial farming and all these stuff, bro. Tractor and all these stuff, bro. So, but you know, yeah, there were days when I was out there so using machete and all these stuff. But it's not like I forgot the machete days. I would go out there and make forget the machete days and all these stuff. But it's just that the podcast is there. The podcast is there because when I leave the machete days, I don't want to talk. You can actually experience why the hell I actually leave the machete days. You actually experience why the hell I actually leave the machete days to the different days. It's just that we don't. Yeah. The thing about the podcast is that what we actually see, you can actually with the podcast you can what I guess one of the new level of the podcast you can see when I'm actually moving from idea to reality. That's the next level of the podcast where you can see when I'm out there so bluffing or stuff like that. You can see when I'm out there so saying, yeah, I'm gonna proclaim to see I'm gonna do this stuff, or when I actually could do it, or when I actually could do it. And be like, when you see those two levels, you're gonna be like, okay, yeah. That's the reason why I actually go there. I'm telling you is that okay, yeah, I can actually go to this level and be like, okay, yeah. And I was thinking about it and be like, I was thinking about there's a crying for money and a crying for money and all this stuff. No, the thing about it is that sometimes I'm telling you, bro, this is the new level. That's the next level. I'm telling you that that's the next level. But you have to experience what the previous level is. So that when we actually go to the different level now, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna say, yeah, this is the reason why we ain't going back to that level. This is the reason why we ain't going back to that level. But we have to actually go on and experience that level to say, yeah, yeah, yeah. We ain't going back to that level anymore, bro. Yeah, so that's the thing with the plastic now, where you'll be like, okay, I'm gonna start in the 14, I'm gonna actually start to try to separate and um plastic and plastic and litter in my home. And eventually you see me doing that in real life and all those stuff. And then you see me out there, so it just apply. What happens? You see me out there throwing small. You're gonna see me throwing away smaller plastic, and then you see me throwing away bigger plastic. Yeah, person you see me throwing away all these stuff, and it's like, oh my god, bro, how the hell am I just throwing away all this plastic, bro? How the hell am I just throwing away all this plastic, bro? And it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like, okay, how the hell am I throwing away all this plastic? I will take the time. I will take the time to actually do these stuff. But what happens is that that's the basic premise of this episode will be like the fourth year going on. You're gonna see me saying something like, okay, yeah. So I talk about electric car. Tesla is my car and all this going to space and all this. So these are the basic stuff that I want you so doing on the surface level. Okay, gas versus electric, and those are gonna be the stuff in the home. Gas versus electric, separating plastic versus litter, silver versus that, and all these stuff. And all these simple stuff gonna be out there. So what is gonna happen is that it's gonna be in the home, bro. It's gonna be in the home. You're not gonna see it. You're not gonna see it in real life. You're gonna see it in the home. And then what will happen is that when actually come out in real life, then we're gonna actually see what happens in real life. You're gonna see the results in real life. So and you can and what happens is that you can just be like, okay, yeah, the the plastic days, bro. Yeah, plastic days ain't coming back, bro. The plastic days ain't coming back. But not only that, the plastic days can come back in a different. And be like, yeah, yeah, we ain't buy those small plastic anymore. On a big plastic and all this stuff. The plastic days ain't coming back anymore and all this stuff. But it takes us to actually go. We don't, as I said, we don't burn in these riches and all this stuff. We actually have to take our time. So, so to say, okay, we take our time to buy certain stuff a certain way, but applying the ways of throwing away the paper and plastic and separating paper and plastic in the home and stuff like that. Just doing that over time, it just compounds, and you just start doing it in real life, and it becomes a luxury. It'll be like you were not doing it, you were not doing it. It actually shows, and be like, okay, yeah, you're not doing it, bro. It shows that okay, we're not doing it no, bro. And it's like we become so it's like we naturally become what we practice, what we preach, and stuff like that. We naturally become that. We naturally become we practice what we preach, and it's like our ability to turn stuff into from idea to reality becomes more quicker, and this then the podcast becomes even that's thing. The more I actually do this stuff, the more it's harder for me to actually. I want this have to go out and re-establish the reason for the podcast more. I'm out this reaching the new levels quicker, bro. I'm getting the right answers quicker, bro. So that's basically the thing that's happening. I'm getting the right answers quicker. This are doing the simple stuff. But you as a listener, the thing about it is that you as a listener, you hear me in the poor days saying these stuff. So you can always go back and hear me saying these poor stuff back in the poor days. But me now in the present now have to actually remember myself doing saying these stuff and actually doing it in real life. That's it. That's the difficulty I have as the host, the person. Let's do this now. I have to actually come in and actually do these stuff in real life. I have to actually go in and remember that okay, I actually do this, I actually say these stuff. So I have to go out and do this stuff in real life and all this stuff. But the thing is that you are the person listening to this now. You will have the actual to go back and actually listen to this stuff and say, yeah, we actually say this stuff now. But we actually have to go out and do it now. But knowing that this is the right answer, this is the right way to go, it does that we actually the thing about the podcast and stuff like that, and you know where I'm coming from. I say more talk and reality. We have actually do this. For these ideas to become a reality, we actually have to come in and actually do this stuff. Yeah, we actually have to come in and do this stuff. And what happens is that we actually have to do this stuff on each level. Each level we have to actually come in and do this stuff. And we be like, okay. And each level we do this stuff. Each level we practice what we preach or stuff like that. Are to the best of our ability. To the best of our ability of saying, okay, we practice what we preach and all these stuff. Then it becomes natural. Then it becomes natural to say, yeah. we naturally out there so separating plastic to the point where we say, okay, the whole family say that we didn't even use plastic anymore, bro. We only use metals, bro. Lightning or what, bro? We we only use metals, bro. We're metal benders, bro. That's basically what we are now, bro. We out there say metal benders, or not even metal benders. What is this, bro? We are actually ceramic or whatever they call it, bro. Or glass. Or glass or stuff like that. But that's the thing. We're out there separating plastic and paper to say that okay, when you're out there separating plastic and paper, that's a way to separate the separate levels. And then when you're out there separate levels now, bro, we out there be like, okay, you can out there go and um it becomes natural. It becomes natural until uh it becomes natural in the home, and it becomes natural in real life, then you naturally go to the new level because you're audience. Just by you doing the right thing. You're not making money or just doing the right stuff. You're just applying it in real life. What happens is that the money that you make is what happens that you out there have so much space to you have so much space now freed up to make the same move in a bigger way. So I'm out there just separating plastic and buying a little bottle of water, bro. I out there separate plastic and go out and buy a bigger water, bro, and carry it home and all these stuff. The water stay for like a couple of days. Well, then when I go out, I just throw away the plastic, put the plastic in the plastic pan, throw away that. Then I go out and buy two water, bro, and all these things, and all these stuff, and all these. So what happens is I'm applying the same concept, you know. I'm out there so not making any different money. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm applying the same concept. Applying the same concept. It's just that I'm I'm taking the bigger risk and all these stuff. the, I'm just changing the size of the stuff. And what happens is that I'm learning how much of the stuff that I actually need at a certain level. I'm getting better at learning the stuff that actually I need at a certain level. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what we actually need at this level. And it's like, okay, boom. And then what means that it reach a point where I can simply do something like boom. I can make a one-time purchase. I can say, okay, I can make a one-time purchase for the whole year. A whole year I purchase. I'll be like, oh yeah, we're gonna buy this, and this is gonna be like, yo, and you don't even see me that place for a year again. You don't even see me at that place for a year again, bro. So it's like that's the thing where we're like, yo, separating plastic, doing that, the simple separating plastic and stuff like that, as a simple way of getting yourself out of it and be like, oh, you you get yourself out of the the separating plastic level and um separating, then there's a better way. Then you're going to see the better way. You're gonna see the better way. That's the thing where I'm actually gonna do these stuff now. Try to do these stuff now. Then it's gonna be, I guess, the level is it's going to try to force me to find a better way. It's gonna force me to try to find a better way, and then when they force me to find a better way, then we can actually say, yeah, this was what it was like before. So this is why we always not doing this anymore. So that's basically it for this episode. Thank you for listening and look forward for the next episode. Mm.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.